So we were going around the table. I think we were just asking, like, on the feminism thing. I think we ended with you. Then we started talking about surfing, differential in pay in surfing. Would you guys consider yourselves feminists?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Rachel, what about you?
No, I would not consider myself a feminist.
Why is that?
Because I think that patriarchy is the natural order of things, and it's inescapable. And if you want to try to be a feminist, you're going to have a really hard time, because it's simply not actually possible for us to have anything besides a patriarchy. And we can get into why that is if anybody wants to.
Does anybody have any qualms with...
Can you define patriarchy for those that don't know?
Sure. Yeah, patriarchy literally just means rule by the father.
Awesome.
So it just generally means men are the rulers and organizers in the home, in society, in the church, in the government.
And this has implications. I mean, we're a dating talk show, but this absolutely has implications when it comes to dating, gender roles, that sort of thing. Someone who's a bit more feminist might prefer a bit more of an egalitarian relationship, 50-50, that sort of thing. So, or at least that's what it would appear to be. She's for patriarchy. Hot take from Rachel here. Does anybody here object to Rachel's position?
So I don't know if I object, but I want to bring up a point. Does everybody know who Lilith is?
Yes, she's in my book.
I love this. How do you feel about, period? How do you feel about her?
Lilith?
She's a demon, so
I think
she's a vengeful goddess figure. Feminists love her. She tends to be a feminist icon because she takes vengeance on men. She sometimes SAs them in their sleep and then murders their babies, the offspring.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
Is this like, I don't know, Diablo 4? Is it Diablo 4? Is that the one from
Diablo?
Yeah. The game?
Yes.
Yeah.
She's kind of hot, not gonna lie.
Yeah, she bites men's heads off pretty much.
Hot.
So
yeah, they're always hot.
But basically, the idea behind her, I guess, was that she was the first. I like the story about her, but now it's funny. Let me just say this: she was there before Eve. It was Adam and Lilith. She's made out of the same stuff as Adam, and she was like, "Why do I have to submit to you if we're made out of the same stuff?" And then she left the Garden of Eden.
Yeah, she would not get underneath Adam.
Yeah.
And so she flew off into the sky and then down into the ocean, and they tried to bring her back. And there's like a whole lore behind it. They think that the legend was actually like post-Christianity, more of a like first few centuries after Christianity, Judaism type of a lore where it came from. But depends how you feel about that. But why do you think that she's cool? Like, what do you like about her?
So I'll say this. One, I have a song called Lilith. It's actually, there's a music video and everything. But I actually do feel different about it now. I'm kind of going through this phase where I was in my toxic relationship and I was in a stage where I wanted to free myself. And like, I understood that, like, why am I submitting to someone that I don't feel is a leader? I'll say that. But now that I think about it, it's like there are men that are leaders. And if you put yourself in that position, it's a different woman. But the woman that I felt that I related to was her, because I was in a situation where I'm like, I shouldn't submit to this man.
Why did you not want to submit to that guy? What was it about him?
He didn't feel like I didn't respect him enough.
Why?
Because he was almost like full of air. I'll give you that. Where it's like he felt as though he was more respectable than he actually was.
So do you feel like he wasn't responsible, or he didn't have his stuff together, or like
that? Just kind of flying off the rails all the time.
Oh, not in control of his emotions.
Yeah.
That'll dry your panties up quick.
Very much so. I said, I'm gonna leave this garden. Yeah. So I felt that.
Because why? That's like female energy, right? A guy who is not in control of his emotions, and he's up and down and all over the place, kind of like we are.
Right.
It's not a good
feeling
match.
Like we're made out of the same stuff.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. So that's why we say no simping, boys. Don't do it.
Let me ask this question from I guess a dating lens. So would you, I think most of you identified as feminist, if I recall.
I said 50-50.
50-50. I think you said yes. Yes. I think no. No? Okay. And then yes for you two. Would you date a guy who is not a feminist, starting with you?
Yeah.
Wait, into the mic, please.
Sorry. Yes. Just hearing like the definitions that you guys have for it is like making me think of it differently, because the definition that I had was literally just, I just don't want to conform to having to listen to somebody that is not going to listen to me, or like allowing somebody to lead that isn't actually a leader but just feels like they're a leader, you know. Like I want to still make my own decisions and stuff like that, and have like a brain of my own and not be like a brainless bimbo. Like that's what I was thinking it was. But
Okay. So what made you feel like it's a different definition? Like, why do you feel like that might be different now?
Well, I do understand that men are leaders. Like I have a really healthy relationship with my father. That's my best friend. And then just the things that I've been through, just putting it into perspective, like that's not somebody that I would want to allow to lead me. But if I found somebody that was a leader, then I would allow them to.
Wait, did you say your dad is not somebody who, or he is somebody?
No, he
who you
is.
would-
I'm saying
Okay.
just like the things that I've been through and like relationships and stuff. Like if I found somebody that was actually a leader, then I would like.
So what kind
allow
of
them to
qualities, like what would you be looking for in somebody who you felt was worth like submitting to?
Someone that would be able to like take care of me in the aspects of emotionally, and take care of things like rent and stuff like that, and not feel like they want to go 50-50 with me. I'm not into that at all.
So this is a common thing I've seen, and I want to ask you guys, do you guys think that what you want, would you say what you want is you want the man to lead when it comes to doing difficult, dangerous, dirty things, paying bills, dealing with really awful situations, then he can lead. But if you're just in your feelings about something, you just want to do what you want to do, then you don't want him to lead. Because I feel like that's a really common thing.
Okay. Well, I feel like, see, for me, like I'm a singer, so I'm always out, like I'm networking and stuff like that. So I feel like I just have to be with somebody that would also be okay with me being out a lot and stuff like that, like, and just supporting the things that I want to do.
So if you had a future partner that asked you to give up your singing and like raise your children, would you not do that?
I mean, I would still raise my children, but I wouldn't give up what I love to do for anybody.
Okay.
Could you still sing though and not be trying to like necessarily make money in it? Like, could
Right.
you sing for yourself, for your family? You could sing at church, you could sing on Instagram, but maybe not be out at clubs networking all the time because you're at home with your kids?
I feel like when I really make a name for myself, I wouldn't have to really network like that all the time. But I feel like it's just certain things that I'm just not willing to budge on. I just feel like my life is still going to be my life, and I'm going to take care of the things that I'm supposed to take care of. But like, if my partner doesn't want me to do something that I love, then I feel like that's not the person for me.
So do you not believe in like sacrificing in a relationship or anything like that? Like, do you feel that the person that you meet, how do I phrase this? Are you selfishly driven? Like, is it everything that you care about has to come first, or would you sacrifice in a relationship?
It just depends on what is being sacrificed, because I understand that in a relationship there is a lot of give and take on both ends. So, but for me, it's just when it comes to something that genuinely makes me happy and stuff like that, like there's going to be late nights where I'm in the studio and you're probably not even going to believe where I am or whatever, stuff like that. Like that happens, and I just feel like I'm not going to budge on certain things.
So you just told us a whole kind of story about what your life's been like so far and what your
Change the
relationships
split.
have been like so far. and it's been super volatile. You've had, would you say it's correct to say that you've had like no stability, no sense of peace, predictability, calm, like continuous like predictability in your relationships? It's been very all over the place.
Yeah, pretty much. I feel like the only real good relationship that I did have was my ex that passed away. So, and I feel like I was able to submit to him in ways like he took care of me emotionally very well and stuff like that. But we were young, like really young. There was no way that we could take care of each other in any other way and stuff like that. We couldn't see each other all the time and things like that either. Like we're both in school. So
you realize that if you get the kind of guy you're saying you want, the kind of man who is going to create stability and continuity in your life, predictability, he's going to handle the business, he's going to pay the bills, he's going to make sure there aren't people coming in, because you seem like a very sensitive and kind of emotional type of person, which is fine. You're a woman. There's reasons that we're like that. If you're going to be a mother, that's a good quality. But that's why you need a man who is like strong, steady, stable, and going to provide the stability. You realize he can't do that if you're going to say to him, I just feel like I need to be able to do what I feel like is going to make me happy. If you are chasing that, you're never going to have that stability and that continuity that you've been looking for, right? Like if you're chasing feelings, he's not going to be able to, you're going to constantly be butting heads with him, and you're not going to be able to have that.
Well, could I interject for a second?
Sure.
I find a lot of men have a lot of feelings too. I mean, not to say there aren't strong men, of course there are. But you know, I mean, I dated a man who was not a feminist, and he was more in his feelings than he liked to admit, I think. And it showed. And
how did it show?
I mean, he was insecure enough that he sought validation in other women. So,
Okay.
Wait, so it's not good to be an emotional man then?
well, I mean, because he didn't express that he was insecure, that he would bottle them up and not communicate to me what he was feeling, and then we'd argue, and he still wouldn't express all those things until something had already happened.
Now, did he tell you why he didn't express his feelings to you, of like whatever the dissatisfaction was that he said made him cheat? Did he tell you why he felt like he couldn't talk to you about it, or?
I mean, I would ask, and you know, he'd be like, well, I didn't feel validated because he's like, you're not giving me enough compliments or something like that. I'm like, I feel like I give you a lot of compliments, but you know, I'll try more, and it still doesn't stop things from happening. And that, of course, that conversation happened after he had already like done something. And
So-
these are conversations that need to happen beforehand.
So what it sounds like to me is that he didn't have strong enough boundaries to begin with, because if he was like a man who had strong boundaries, like my husband, if he was not happy, he wouldn't just like go cheat. He'd be like, this is what I expect, and this is what my needs are, and if you can't meet that,
He
is done.
would. He did. He gave me a bunch of boundaries and morals, as he put it, and I would either abide or compromise on them, because you know, I believe that we need to have those conversations. But then he's like, whatever moral I set for you is also set for me. But then
Okay.
obviously these things happened.
So what was it that he came to you and said, this is my boundary, that you felt like some of the things you respected and other things you compromised on? Like, can you give me any specific examples? at all?
For example, let's see. He didn't want me to go out to the clubs with friends or whatever. Not that I was ever a very partying person. But because I did it maybe once in a month, he was like, that's too much. I'm like, well, I'm going to be surrounded with friends. He's like, I got to be there. And then I'm like, okay, hey, do you want to go with us? And be like, I don't want to go. And I was like, okay, well, and I'm like, well, then can I go with the friends? I'm like, no. And so one time he was like, okay, you can go this one time. It's just stuff like that. It's
Okay.
And another time, okay, he didn't want me to hang out with this guy friend I had for a very long time. I mean, I knew for 10 years, and I knew he wouldn't do ever anything. I mean, he's more into guys than he's ever into women. And
Wait, he was like, like he was homosexual?
gay? He's bi.
Okay.
But he is definitely more into men. So and I was like, hey, I'm gonna hang out with him. I even, communicated with him beforehand. I'm like, you gave me permission to hang out with this person before, so I am now communicating to you. This is someone I'm going to hang out with today. And he got really upset by that. And he was like, well, you didn't say it would be at, their place. I'm like, yeah, but all their siblings are there.
So, I mean, like, did he say you hanging out with other dudes, regardless of their sexual orientation, is a deal breaker for me? Like, did he tell you that?
Well, we, went through my friends list, and I was like, well, how do you feel about this person? How do you feel about that person? And I'm like, how do you feel about new people coming in? So we'd have those conversations.
So if he had said that, if he had said, look, if I'm going to be in a relationship with you, I don't want you hanging out with dude friends without me. Like, if it's couples and we're hanging out together, that's fine. Or if we're in a group and there's guys in the group, that's fine. Yeah. But I don't want you to, like, go off with your guy friend. How would you have reacted to that?
I mean, I'm not going to lie. I didn't like it. I didn't. But that was one of the compromises.
So do you think you'd be attracted to a guy who had no problem with you hanging out with other dudes? Do you think that you would still be attracted and, like, want a guy like that?
I don't think I'd do it again. Because, I know the friends I've made, and I've not had a problem.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I feel like it all just comes down to trust. Like, if you and your partner have an understanding of, like, you wouldn't be doing anything if I'm not there, I'm not going to do anything if you're not there, or just like that understanding, it shouldn't be an issue if you want to hang out with your friends.
I think that's lies that women tell themselves so that they can do what they want, to be honest.
I mean, if I trust you.
Because if you're in a committed relationship, and if the purpose of the relationship is eventually marriage, which seems like you guys, even though you have very loose, like, boundaries about relationships, like you're very open and you're really modern about things, like, everybody kind of says they want to get married at a certain point. So it's like, you're all saying, I want a strong man who's going to lead, who's got his shit together, who isn't in his feelings, who has, if he has a boundary, he's going to be up front, he's not going to violate it later. Yeah. But then on the other hand, you're like, but I also want him to let me hang out with my guy friends, and I want him to be okay with me dabbling with women, and I want him to let me do what I want when I want. Do you see, like, where I'm going with it? How it sounds like you guys kind of want the strong guy who's going to hold it together, but you also want him to, like, let you do whatever you want.
Well, let me ask you this. Why does a man, not wanting you to hang out with a guy friend equate to a strong man? Why does that make them a strong man?
Why do I need a leash?
Yeah. Well, it depends. Do you want him hanging out with women when you're not there?
I didn't care if he communicated. Yeah.
Now, I hear what you're saying, but I pay attention to what women do, not what they say. So if you say, I'm fine with my boyfriend going off and hanging out with his girl who's a friend, it doesn't bother me. What I'm hearing is, that's not a guy you really want. That's not a guy that you're actually into, who really, like...
Maybe you're speaking for yourself, but that's not for me, that's not what happened. I loved him. I wanted a whole future with him.
But not enough to not hang out with the guy friends. Right. But not enough to not
remember, I compromised. I didn't hang out with guy friends unless he said, this is okay. Period. And I even went out of my way. I'm like, hey, meet them. Assess them for yourself.
Right. I agree.
And, yeah.
Oh, I have a question. Yeah. So you said that your most recent boyfriend cheated on you. I'm curious, did he cheat on you with a woman or with a man? Because you said he's bi, right?
No, that was the friend.
Wait.
The guy friend I have, that's not my boy, or ex, I should say. Oh. Yeah.
I thought you were dating a bi. It sounded like you're dating a guy who's bi. Okay.
He wants to hang out with the bi friend.
Okay, all right. Never mind. Go ahead. Continue with your...
we compromised. And so, I was even saying, hey, meet these friends, assess for yourself, tell me who you're comfortable with, etc. Because I don't want to be disrespectful. I get we have our differences, and I want to respect that. And he said this person in particular was okay. And so I was going to hang out with them. And then he got upset.
And then I get a message from him saying,
Wait, why did he get upset?
I don't know.
Was it the case that you kind of pushed and pushed and pushed until he accepted that? And he was like, fine, you can hang out with the one guy, I guess, because he's mostly gay. Like, was it kind of like that, or was it? Or was he like, oh no, Joey is fine. Hang out with Joey all you want. And then he just randomly got upset for no reason? Or?
No, I mean, this was something we agreed to for a long time, and it finally came down. And mind you, the whole hangout that was supposed to happen was supposed to be kind of just professional. I was helping him with a film project. And yes, it was going to be at his home, but he has this home with a bunch of other siblings, and it wasn't just going to be him. And I wasn't going to his room. I've never been in his room, actually. And
So why did he get upset is what I'm trying to
because
ask.
he wasn't aware at the time that I was going to the apartment. Okay, sure, I didn't say that. But, I mean, I explained the situation to him, and he was still upset. And then he was like, okay, you know what, I'm going to hang out with a friend. I'm like, friend, define friend. And so he said it was a woman. I was like, okay, what's her name? And her name is Hannah. And then I was like, I've never heard you mention her before. And he's like, oh yeah, I met her yesterday at Journeys. She was helping me buy a shoe. I'm like, and suddenly this is a friend you're gonna hang out with one-on-one. And he's like, yeah, you shouldn't have a problem with that. You got to hang out with your friend. I'm like, that's different. That's a total stranger. You don't know her. I don't know her.
So it sounds to me like he was trying to give you a taste of your own medicine so you could feel how he was
But it's
feeling.
a total stranger that he had never even really met.
Maybe it was, but I mean, statistically, you're more likely
Here's the
to
thing.
cheat with a guy who's your friend.
Sure,
And
I
men know this.
I understand
They
that.
know
True,
that, yeah.
I'm not going to disagree. It's if you know someone who's familiar, it does make it easier.
Yeah.
You know, but in this case, yeah, it was a total stranger, and I know he was trying to give me a taste of my own medicine, but you know, it's a completely different situation. I know my friend for 10 years. This is someone he met yesterday, and this is someone that we had a communication about. This is someone we never spoke about, never even knew, and so it's those kind of things. If that makes any kind of sense.
Yeah, makes sense. I feel like it's a situation that completely could have been avoided, though. And I think that if you are trying to date someone seriously, you shouldn't be hanging out with people of the opposite sex, period. It doesn't matter.
I will say I personally have never hung out with a guy friend one-on-one when I'm in a relationship. I don't do that. But what I will say is that if I have a guy friend that I knew before my relationship and I introduce them and we hang out together, I think that is fine. I'll say
Well,
that.
let's continue going around the table. So would you date a guy who's not a feminist?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't think I would.
You wouldn't. Okay, what about you?
Could you go explain what a feminist is?
Well, I mean, didn't you describe yourself as a feminist?
Could you explain a little?
Well, okay, so I would argue that the most charitable at least the most charitable definition I would give feminism is it's a woman's advocacy movement.
Mm-hmm.
That's the most charitable definition I give it. I don't even believe it's in the most charitable form. It's a movement for equality. I think it's a woman's advocacy movement.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with that. I don't think it has any interest in equality, though.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's
Okay.
women's advocacy.
Both of you guys.
The reality, but that's me being charitable, I would argue the reality of feminism is it's something along the lines of women's advocacy steeped in conspiracy theories, and there's bare minimum like some degree of male bigotry, bias, even misandry, hatred of men. Yeah, that's my more accurate sense of what feminism is.
Okay. Can I change my answer? I don't think that I'm a feminist.
Oh, okay.
Good job.
I'm noticing a pattern. Are you noticing a pattern? They all say they're a feminist, and then when we further define, they're like, no, I don't want to identify with that, right? But then when we get probing questions going, we kind of find out that they are feminists. So.
Let me ask a couple questions that could perhaps help with this. So, you've got a boyfriend over here.
I do.
With him, or just like if you were ever to, go back out there and date, who do you think should pay on a first date? The man or the woman?
Like the very first date?
Yeah, first date.
I mean, I guess if he's taking you out, then he
Then-
could pay for it.
then
But
the guy.
like throughout the relationship, then I feel like it shouldn't just be him.
Okay, so first date should be the guy. What about the first few dates?
I would split. I would offer, like when we were first starting to date, I would like, if he pays for the dinner, then maybe I'll get dessert. Or like,
Okay, so we would pay for 80% and you would pay for 20% of the bill? Typically, if my understanding of eating out, dessert is typically going to be a fraction of the, maybe it's $5.
Or, like, it doesn't have to be like dinner and dessert. It could be like, if we're going to the movies, then he could buy the tickets, or then I'll get the snacks.
With your boyfriend for the first date, did he pay for it?
I'm pretty sure he got the tickets and I got the snacks.
Okay. What about you? If you end up on a first date with a guy, would you like him to pay, or are you okay 50-50?
I'm okay with 50-50 for like the first date, yeah.
What about dates beyond the first date?
I think it would be like, it shouldn't have to be like exactly 50-50, but I'm okay with like, you, like if we're like more serious about it, like, we just kind of like pay for each other, and it's not like something like super like strict, I guess, like.
Okay, he gets one, you get one.
Yeah, kind of
okay.
like that.
What about you?
Absolutely.
Absolutely what?
Pay on the first date.
The guy should pay on the first date?
Yes.
Okay. What about you?
Yes, the guy should pay on the first date.
The guy should pay on the first date.
I don't think so. I mean, look, if they're asking for, they're like, I want to take you to a super expensive restaurant. I don't have the money for that. I'm going to communicate that. And if they're like, okay, then let's go somewhere cheaper, cool. That's fine with me. I don't care.
Okay.
But I will split.
That's fair. Okay,
Yeah.
so if he's asking you somewhere expensive, then yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What about you? Who should pay?
Men.
Men should pay. Okay. Didn't you say you were a feminist? Feminist. Not a
said
feminist.
50-50.
Hey,
Not
I
a
said
feminist.
split.
Feminist.
50-50.
Okay.
Well, I mean, split.
Here's another question that we can kind of figure out here. Should women be drafted? This is an
into the
effort
military?
to figure out if you
Yeah.
guys are feminist or not. Should women be drafted in the military?
Like, by drafted, do you mean like when you turn 18, like you're automatically?
Okay, yeah,
have
so
to
men
do that?
have to register for the Selective Service. Currently, there's not a draft in the United States, but all men in the United States at 18, in order to be able to vote and have other benefits, they have to register for the Selective Service, which would then make them subject to military conscription in the case that there was a military conflict which required a draft. So do you think women should be subject to Selective Service draft? Forced?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Okay.
I wouldn't even trust women to like fight for our country unless that's like that's their thing. You know, like if you're like that type of woman that you feel like you're stronger and stuff like that. But I just feel like no.
Okay. What do you think?
Well, hold on. So you think they should be drafted based on how they feel?
No,
About-
I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying if like willingly, if you just want to.
She's saying if they want to
That's not-
No,
volunteer.
just really
not a
want to
draft,
volunteer.
though.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
they want to volunteer, yes.
Yeah, but then that just defeats
Which
the
is-
purpose.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
Right. Well, that's what we currently have.
yeah, but I guess we should be drafted because I mean,
Okay. All right.
I mean, plenty of men don't want to join.
Okay.
Plenty of men, plenty of men, plenty of women. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
If we gotta do what we gotta do, I mean, yeah.
Now, here's the interesting thing. You guys both have different opinions on this. I still don't know which is actually like the actual feminist position, because we'll have feminists who will argue it's actually, we had one last week with Andrew,
Yeah.
who said, well, it's not equitable. It's not equity for women to be drafted. That's a whole nother thing.
Interesting.
But what about you?
No.
No? Okay.
No, women should not be drafted.
Should not be drafted,
No.
but they should be paid equally in sporting events.
No comment.
Okay.
No,
They shouldn't be drafted?
I don't think so.
Well, hold on.
Okay, so everybody except Anza
Yeah.
said women shouldn't be drafted, but y'all want to be equal? So wait a sec. How are you equal if the men are the ones that have to fight and die to defend the country? The men are the ones that build and maintain all the infrastructure, right? Like none of this stuff in the studio is built or maintained by women. Do you know that like 90% of infrastructure jobs are still held by men? And that if you look at the top 20 jobs held by women now in 2024 versus 1924 are almost the exact same. So women have had 100 years to do whatever they want, and they still do the same 20 jobs they did 100 years ago, other than We switched out farm labor for HR work. But other than that, we're secretaries, nurses, daycare ladies, early childhood education, administrative assistants, retail workers, all the same shit that we were a century ago. So if the men are the ones tasked with every time there's a natural disaster, they have to go out and rescue people from the fires and the floodwaters, and every time there's a war, the men have to go and fight it and defend the country, and anytime there's a criminal who needs to be violently arrested, it's going to be a man who goes and does that, not a woman. Where does the equality come in? If we're doing the fluffy jobs, you know, we're all singers, we got a lot of singers and musicians, which is cool, it's great, I love music too. But y'all ain't like rescuing people and you know, doing the heavy lifting or the dirty or the dangerous jobs. Like, who collects the trash? Men. You know, who does all the steel working and oil rig work and all of the like sewer cleaning? Men.
Tower making.
We have a video on this, Rachel, actually. Nick, remember that video we were looking at yesterday? I think it might still be on one of the tabs. Let's watch this.
Is it audio?
No audio. No audio. Go ahead.
Oh, there's no audio on it.
Yeah, go ahead. Are you ready to work on an oil rig? All right.
Come on, feminists, get in there. You
those
can
are
do
some
it.
rough necks.
Come on,
That's
ladies. Anyone?
definitely not strong
Andrew had to
enough for
do
that.
stuff like that back in the day. They'd lower him
underwater
into
welding, I
not
guess.
not
Or-
underwater, but they would lower him into these tiny little horrifically frightening spaces to do extremely dangerous stuff.
I'm claustrophobic.
I really feel like
Yeah.
women should just have the choice to do it if they want to, because I know some women that can handle it.
They do have the
Yeah.
choice, and they're
That's-
not.
They
doing
do,
it.
and they're not
doing it.
They
That's
don't
fine.
want to.
Well,
this
I mean,
is, this
that's
is the
fine.
big secret,
Yeah.
right? Is that women don't want to do any of this dirty,
So-
dangerous, scary stuff. They don't want to.
Well, yeah, but is that just, you know, what we've been raised with, the culture
No.
we're surrounded by?
No, and I have data to back this up. So
Okay.
if you
Oh, is there more, Nick? Just let it play.
yeah, we'll just let it play. So back around the time of suffrage, we're talking like 1850s to 1920, roughly around there when the big suffrage movement was happening. Did you guys know that most women were completely against it? By all of the referendums that they would do where they would let women vote on whether they wanted to vote, only about 4% actually had any interest in voting. And they actually had really good reasons for this. There was much higher membership in anti-suffrage groups than pro-suffrage groups. And these groups would do public debates. They would do written debates, newspaper periodicals where they would go back and forth and debate these things. And the women who were against suffrage said, look, the primary purpose of government is to protect persons and property, okay? Why task women with that when we're not really capable of doing that, okay? We don't want to have to be drafted. We don't want to have to do jury duty. We don't want to have to be a political bloc, because back then women had advocacy groups for things they wanted, but they weren't a lobbying group. They didn't have like voting rights, so they weren't able to be as easily politicized. They felt like they had a moral high ground to ask for things like, we need more parks, we need better schools, we need clean air, whatever it was. And that if they became just another voting bloc, they would be involved in dirty politics, and they didn't want to do that. They felt like somebody has to be morally neutral and not involved in politics. So, given all of that, do you guys think that women can protect and defend persons and property?
Sure.
Okay,
I mean,
how?
well, first of all, I want to go back to the fact that for a long time, women weren't allowed to own property, or at least not without being married. And so,
Actually, it was the opposite. It was once you got married, you generally, whatever belonged to you belonged to your
sure,
husband,
but
so you
then
couldn't
usually the woman is still living with the family.
Right,
And
but why would you? So think about
Yeah.
why.
Why would you wanna
do
live on your own?
Why do you think women didn't own property?
Well,
do you think it was just the patriarchy, like just
No,
hated
I'm not
the
saying
women
that.
and
I'm
they
not
just
saying
wanted
that.
to put their boot on their neck and keep them down?
I
or-
generally don't think that.
Okay, what do you think?
I generally think it was just a matter of the times. Like, you know, because it was, I mean,
So do you think there was a reason, though? Do you think there was a logic behind not letting
I think
women
it
own
worked for
property?
back then. I think it worked for what it is at that point in time.
No, I don't think you understand what I'm
Sure.
saying. So
Okay.
if you're a woman
Yeah.
and you own land and it's 1802,
Mm-hmm.
and bandits or cattle robbers or Indians come and they say, we're taking your land,
Yeah.
what are you going to do about it?
But that's exactly my point. That worked for that time.
Okay, what's different now?
We don't have that as much. I mean, it depends on the neighborhood, of course. I mean, it depends on the community.
Okay,
et
so
cetera.
if you own land now in 2024 and you have a squatter who comes and squats on your property and you need them removed,
I did that.
Do you call ladies to come and physically remove them, or are there men who come and physically remove them?
So I had a subleaser who I needed to get rid of, and I did all of it. My landlord didn't do anything.
Okay, what'd you do?
I went to the court, and
Okay.
I got the papers. I took her to court. I won.
Oh wait, as a woman squatter?
Yeah.
Oh. Well, okay. But did you physically remove her, or did cops come?
Well, did she willingly, after the judgment from the court, she willingly left?
So, okay, the lease was up. She refused to leave. And so, I got the paperwork. I gave her the 3-day notice to vacate, which is the proper way to...
Right, you're going through the eviction process.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so then, and she was still like, that's not right. It's totally illegal, even though I got it literally from the courthouse. And so then we're like, okay, let's get the proper eviction papers. Mind you, we still had the papers escorted by cops.
So did you both went to the court and there was like the eviction trial?
Yeah, and we did.
Okay.
Well, I mean, not the eviction trial.
So
So she did leave within the 5 days of receiving the eviction.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But, so let's say she stayed there, right?
Yeah.
Because I think this is what Rachel is getting at. Let's say she stayed there, you even won the eviction case,
Yeah.
the judge did an order, I don't know, typically after the eviction, I think they have another period of time, it depends on the state.
Yeah.
It can be 10 days, 30 days, whatever it is. And then the cops will come after a certain period of time and then forcibly remove the person. I think what Rachel's trying to get at is
Right.
who's going to forcibly remove the person, whether man or woman, if they were, even after getting a judgment from a court, they still refuse to leave.
Right, okay. So in this case, because she left within the 5 days, I didn't have to have the sheriff remove her.
Right.
But, at least when I was giving the papers, the cops that were there were men and women. Yes, primarily men, but there were women.
Right,
Who's to say there can't be more?
Well, you're talking about the process server? So you served her with the...
So it was my mother who served her, but because of the threats she was making, we had her escorted by Foot Patrol.
Ah, and that was not like a bunch of strong, independent women who marched her
It was
out
a
of
man
there.
and a woman.
Okay. And if it had just been a woman, do you see what I'm getting at? Do you see, like, who defends our national borders? Not a bunch of feminists, right? The use of force is still always going to be men.
I mean, of course,
like when you come down
men are
to-
taller and bigger. Of course,
Yeah.
they're gonna have
Now
that
you're getting it.
physical. Well, I always got it. I always
Right.
understood.
Right.
Going back to the sports things. The men are gonna be able to do things that women just physically
Right.
can't. But
So when we talk about equality, the only equality women have is the illusion of equality granted to them and provided for them by men.
sure. That's why I think it depends on the context when it comes to equality. Personally,
But if you have to appeal to men and say, men, let us be equal. We demand equality. And the men go, fine, we'll enforce equality. Is that really equality?
well, that's why I think it depends on how it is being handled. Personally, I think
So it's up to the men, basically. It's always going to when
Well,
you get
because
down
they're
to it,
already
you have
in
the
that
men.
position. If we could flip it, and then they'd have to ask us, right?
Okay. So you think we could put women on all the oil rigs, and we could put women in the Senate, we could put women in the military as generals, we could make them sheriffs, and that would work out fine?
Yeah.
You think so? Okay.
Here's the thing. For example, I remember watching this one show, I think it was called Stars and Stripes, and it took a bunch of celebrities and put them in the position of military. It had men and it had women. The person who ended up winning was the skier Peekaboo Streets, and she was a woman. She beat out Sarah Palin.
that guy?
She ended up beating out Sarah Palin's husband,
this is a reality
Wait,
show?
where's this going? Where is this going?
well, for example, she ended up winning. She was in, but they were all put in position of military, and she ended up winning. It was a woman.
So do you think that men and women are the same?
I don't think they're the same. I don't. I think physically there are differences.
Okay. Just physically though? Like you don't think that men have certain strengths and women have certain strengths and they each have like different divinely appointed roles in existence?
I'm an atheist personally.
Okay. Do you think that they have appointed roles in society in order for society to be mostly successful?
I think that's how it's come to be.
So can I ask you another question?
Yeah.
Do you think that women are happier today, or do you think that they were happier before all of this stuff?
I
That's a good
think
question.
Because it's proven that women
Well-
are way less happier today.
okay, but is that just the stats we're looking at now? As in, like, those are the stats we're taking?
That's just ignorance is bliss.
Yeah, because I mean, for example, like people like to make the argument that we're seeing a rise in autism. Okay, is it the fact that there's a rise in autism, or did we just not take into account the fact that we didn't know what it was before?
Well, so
Well, I think people know
I
what
can
happiness
actually
was.
explain this because it's like my area of specialty.
Sure.
There's surveys that were done, like very large scale surveys that were done in the 70s, and then again in the 90s, and then again in the early 2000s. So the first one that came out was called The Paradox of Female Happiness, where when they surveyed women all over the West and asked them if they were what their satisfaction levels were, a ton of different metrics were used. In the 70s, pretty good, pretty happy, not a lot wrong. By the time we get to the 90s and they repeat the survey, women are declining in happiness in the places that they have the most freedom, the most egalitarian societies. So the places where women have the most equality are the places where we see them not only reporting that they have higher levels of unhappiness, but also we see a rise in alcoholism, fetal alcohol syndrome, depression, anxiety, prescription drug use. Every metric they look at, women are reporting that they are less happy. Now, there's a lot of reasons. We could talk about why that might be.
Sure.
But I think people don't understand that when women are trying to be equal, it makes life pretty impossible. You end up thinking you can have it all, do it all, be it all. Your expectations are wildly high, and you expect that you're going to be able to have a husband and a family and a career and do whatever you want, but also have a man who's going to take care of stuff. And these things all contradict each other. These things do not mesh together well. On top of that, women are more emotionally volatile. We have a hormonal cycle every month that fluctuates. We have pre-menopause, we have postpartum, we have a lot of ups and downs that men don't have.
Why does that make us more emotional? Because I'm genuinely
Because
asking.
of the literal hormone
Well,
in your
hold
body.
on. I know. But I mean, for example, let's look at history here. So much war has been caused by men.
Well, I have something for this actually.
Yeah.
So I mean, they looked at monarchs, for example, kings and queens, and they actually found that queens were just as or even more likely to wage war than kings.
Oh, I'm not disagreeing. I think there's some real messed up women in history too, truly.
No, but they did an analysis here. I'm not just saying there were some queens. They just comparing all of the. I don't know if it was the English monarchs, the British monarchs. I don't recall exactly the specific details of this analysis they did, but they did find that queens were more likely to wage war than kings.
Okay.
Just wanted to put that in there.
Sure. I mean, are we looking at it statistically as in, let's be real, there were probably still more kings in history than there were ever queens that were really in charge.
Per capita.
Okay,
right?
so it is per capita.
Yeah.
Okay. I can't speak to that personally.
So
but
why would we think that men are going to start more war if women are more emotionally volatile and less rational and less logical on average?
Well, maybe
than
we'd
men
know
are?
that if we were taught more about those women as well. Because personally, I'm just gonna be honest with you. How many women in history can we actually name?
A ton.
Well, talking in that specific position to cause a war.
I'm an Orthodox Christian, and we have tons of different queens and princesses and women who were in various leadership positions and waged horrific war on their enemies. And things like that,
it's just usually we see, queens that are just with a king. Yes. Oh.
You're getting
sorry.
Well,
cut off.
that would be. I could give you that, except that in the modern age we have a whole bunch more data that proves that this is not the case.
Okay.
For example, when you look at juvenile correction facilities or women's prisons, so we were just talking about how men have the monopoly on force.
Yeah.
So men in male prisons, things like that. Generally, men grow up using physical force. And when they're little, they do rough and tumble play with their dad, with their siblings, with their friends, and they kind of learn where the boundaries are of how much can I beat up my friend before I go too far and actually cause harm. So they tend to learn that young, and it has an impact. Women don't have those same experiences. So what we see is that when women do have the monopoly on force, for instance, when you are a female guard in a juvenile facility or a female guard in a women's prison, the women guards are far more likely to be abusive, and the abuse tends to be worse than men. And
I have heard that.
They do think it's partially because of our emotional volatility, our hormonal fluctuations, and also just because women tend to be more likely to be on prescription psychiatric medications, have mental illnesses, and just be less used to knowing where the boundary is. So when women lose their shit and get physical, they tend to escalate to a point that's a lot worse than what a man
can I
would
ask
do.
then, is some of this maybe because, also we hear a lot that women don't get the resources they need in the medical field?
You mean like mental health wise?
I'm not talking necessarily mental health. Like for me personally, I took years to get diagnosed with chronic illness.
Okay.
And there's a lot of that. And there's also not as much like research on women in medicine. Again, going back to autism.
How does that relate to like the violence?
I think I kind of know what you're talking about a little bit. I'd like to offer up a bit of a rebuttal.
Okay.
So I think you're talking perhaps about how there's less testing of certain drugs on women, or like less things are tested on women. My rebuttal, though, there would be, well, one thing that's a concern is if you're testing an experimental drug on somebody, if the woman happens to be pregnant but she doesn't know it, there could be ramifications there when it comes, because, for example, some medications are not recommended if you're pregnant, for example. So if you're testing something experimental, the woman doesn't know she's pregnant, obviously it could be very rare that, she's happened to be partaking in a trial and, she's pregnant. That could be one of the justifications for why they're more inclined to test things on men. There's also like this component of, well, women, when women's hormones tend to shift a bit more throughout their cycle. So I think it's better to test on someone who has their hormones are a bit more level.
I get this.
But the other thing is, it's not clear to me if it's some privilege to
have to be tested on
have like experimental drugs tested on you. That seems like it would be a negative, like men are so desperate for money and resources that they're willing to have experimental drugs tested on them. I think if it was actually the reverse, if it was 100% women where we were testing drugs on them, there would be a huge outcry from feminists saying, wait, why are we like subjugating women specifically to this drug treatment? That seems like...
I get what you're saying. I mean, I personally wouldn't be opposed to that.
Okay.
But
if it was 100% women?
Yeah, I honestly think it's kind of necessary. Because...
Sure, but I feel like feminists would just argue and be like, wait, hold on, this is like, look at how, this is unfair.
This
like, why are women
You're not going to hear that
on?
from me personally.
Okay.
But,
all right, well, that's fine.
No, I mean, for example, this is a more minor thing, but like, okay, why has, recently, when they test like tampons or pads, it's only now they're using real menstrual blood rather than like water or
But how does
it's different?
I just wonder how this gets back to what we were debating, which was why can women defend persons and property?
Yeah, to tie back to that.
If a hurricane takes out half the eastern seaboard, are the women going to get out there and get the power lines back up and put the sandbags out and rescue people from the floodwaters and rebuild everything?
I mean, I would certainly hope so.
No, they can't. They can't do it. They can't do it.
Ben George donated $200.
Yo, thank you, Ben. Appreciate it, man.
So you claimed men are more dangerous and advocate for women, yet want examples of powerful women abusing power?
No.
Use Google image search for teacher arrested for essay.